When we talk about the richest countries in the world, names like the United States, Switzerland, or the oil-rich Gulf nations usually come to mind. But there's one tiny nation that defies all expectations: Singapore. A country so small that you can drive across it in less than an hour, with no oil reserves, no gold mines, no fertile land, and not even enough fresh water of its own. And yet, today, Singapore is one of the wealthiest countries on earth, with skyscrapers piercing the sky, one of the busiest ports in the world, a global financial center, and a standard of living that rivals the most developed nations. The question is, how did this little red dot get so crazy rich? The story of Singapore is nothing short of miraculous. In 1965, when it gained independence after separating from Malaysia, the odds were stacked against it. Poverty was widespread, unemployment was high, slums covered much of the city, and the future looked bleak. Many experts doubted that Singapore could even survive as a nation, let alone thrive. Yet, within just a few decades, this small island transformed itself from a struggling third-world country into a glittering first-world metropolis. This transformation didn't happen by chance. It was the result of visionary leadership, strict governance, bold decisions, and an unshakable belief in progress. Singapore turned its weaknesses into strengths, leveraging its strategic location, focusing on education, and opening its doors to global investment. Today, it stands as a shining example of what determination and long-term planning can achieve. In this video, we're going to uncover the fascinating journey of how Singapore rose from rags to riches, and how it became one of the richest countries in the world without a single drop of oil. The vision of Lee Kuan Yew. Lee Kuan Yew, the founding prime minister, understood a hard truth: Singapore could not afford to follow the path of traditional developing countries. Without natural resources, the only real resource Singapore had was its people. So he built the nation's future around human capital, strict governance, and long-term planning. Lee's government prioritized education, discipline, and cleanliness. Corruption was crushed, rule of law was enforced, and transparency became a cornerstone of governance. Singaporeans were pushed to think big, not just about survival, but about transforming their island into a hub for global trade. It wasn't easy, but Lee Kuan Yew's vision laid the foundation for what was to come, a nation that would rise from rags to riches in just a few decades. Strategic location, turning geography into gold. Now, location matters, and Singapore's location was both a challenge and an opportunity. Sitting at the crossroads of major sea routes between Asia, Europe, and the Middle East, Singapore was perfectly positioned to become a hub for global trade. Instead of just being a port that ships passed through, Singapore reinvented itself as the most efficient and reliable port in the world. The government invested heavily in building world-class infrastructure, including the Port of Singapore, which today is one of the busiest in the world. By offering stability, efficiency, and top-notch facilities, Singapore attracted shipping companies, logistics firms, and global businesses. The country transformed itself into the Switzerland of Asia, trusted for both security and neutrality. This was the first step toward becoming crazy rich. Opening up to foreign investment. But trade alone was not enough. Singapore needed jobs, industries, and income for its people. So, the government made a bold decision. Instead of shutting itself off from the world, it opened its doors wide to foreign investors. Multinational companies were encouraged to set up factories, offices, and headquarters in Singapore. To attract them, the government offered low taxes, political stability, world-class infrastructure, and a skilled workforce. Companies like Shell, HP, and Siemens were among the early investors, and they created thousands of jobs. Slowly, Singapore began shifting from a struggling economy to an industrial powerhouse. The rise of financial power. The next masterstroke was turning Singapore into a financial hub. In the 1970s and 1980s, as global finance expanded, Singapore positioned itself as the safest place in Asia to do banking. Strict regulations kept corruption at bay, while policies encouraged foreign banks to operate in the city. Soon, Singapore became the Wall Street of Asia. International investors poured in, businesses moved their headquarters here, and the country became a magnet for capital. Today, Singapore is one of the top financial centers in the world, competing with New York, London, and Hong Kong. Billions of dollars move through its banks every single day. Education and meritocracy. But let's pause here. Singapore's wealth is not just about money. It's also about brains. Education has always been a national priority. From the very beginning, the government invested heavily in schools, universities, and technical training. Every child was pushed to excel, and meritocracy, the idea that people rise based on talent and effort, not family background, became the backbone of society. This produced a highly skilled workforce that could adapt to industries like electronics, biotechnology, and information technology. Singaporeans became known for their discipline, work ethic, and ability to compete on the global stage. When the world shifted from manufacturing to services and technology, Singapore was ready. A clean and efficient city. One of the most striking features of Singapore is how clean, efficient, and organized everything is. This isn't an accident. From the start, the government made strict rules about littering, pollution, and urban planning. Housing projects replaced slums, public transport was built to world-class standards, and safety became a priority. This made Singapore an attractive place for both locals and foreigners. Tourists came in millions, businesses felt secure, and expats brought investment. A well-planned, corruption-free, and safe city became one of the greatest selling points of Singapore's success. The transition to a high-tech economy. By the 1990s and 2000s, Singapore wasn't just a port or a banking hub, it was transforming into a high-tech economy. The government heavily invested in research, innovation, and technology. Tech giants like Google, Facebook, and Apple opened offices in Singapore. Biotech firms and startups flourished. The country became a hotbed for innovation, hosting some of the biggest tech and financial conferences in the world. Its digital infrastructure, fast internet, and smart city policies turned Singapore into a futuristic model for others to copy. Tourism and lifestyle. Of course, wealth is not only about business. Singapore also reinvented itself as a global tourist destination. Attractions like Marina Bay Sands, Gardens by the Bay, and Sentosa Island became global icons. Add to that its reputation as one of the safest and cleanest cities on earth, and Singapore became irresistible to travelers. Today, tourism contributes billions of dollars to the economy every year. How rich is Singapore today? So, after all these years of hard work, where does Singapore stand? Today, Singapore has one of the highest GDP per capita in the world, over $80,000 per person. That's richer than the United States, the United Kingdom, and even oil-rich countries. It is home to over millionaires and billionaires, despite its tiny size. The country consistently ranks at the top in quality of life, healthcare, education, and infrastructure. And despite being smaller than many global cities, Singapore wields immense influence on the world stage. Lessons the world can learn. The story of Singapore shows us that wealth isn't about having natural resources. It's about vision, leadership, and discipline. While many countries with oil or gold remain trapped in corruption and poverty, Singapore built its fortune on good governance, education, and openness to the world. It teaches us that size doesn't matter. What matters is strategy, unity, and execution. Smart governance and long-term planning. One key reason Singapore became crazy rich is simple: smart governance. Unlike many countries where governments change policies every few years, Singapore has always followed long-term planning. The government thinks decades ahead, whether it's urban development, education, or economics. This consistency gives businesses and investors confidence. They know that Singapore is stable, predictable, and reliable. From a poor island with no resources to a global powerhouse, Singapore's journey is nothing short of miraculous. It got crazy rich not because of luck, but because of hard choices, visionary leadership, and the determination of its people. Today, when you walk through Marina Bay, look at the glittering skyline, or see the futuristic gardens by the bay, you're not just seeing wealth. You're seeing the result of decades of sacrifice, planning, and relentless ambition. That's how Singapore got crazy rich, and why the world continues to admire its story.